Hello, I'm Cheryl Dissanayake, the Director of the Olga Tennyson Autism Research Centre at La Trobe University. I have with me today Professor Margot Pryor, who I'll be interviewing for the next little while. Professor Pryor is a developmental clinical psychologist with many strings to her bow, including interests in temperament, in learning disabilities, in attention, in ADHD, attention deficit hyperactive disorder, and of course in autism, which will be the focus of our little chat today. Margot was also a classical musician, in fact a concert musician, prior to her eminent position as a psychologist over many years. So Margot, welcome.
Thank you.
And how do you go from the oboe to autism?
Well, it was fortuitous, really. I never decided to give up my musical career, but I wanted to do some stimulating work. And so I finished off a psychology degree, and that didn't feel like enough. And so I thought I would go for postgraduate work. And I was managing the two careers for quite a while, although I was always had to be part-time with my music. So when I'd finished my degrees, I went out to Monash to inquire about...
my old alumni as well.
Yes, to inquire about postgraduate work, and I met the wonderful Ross Day, who's been a big figure in my life, and he was very welcoming. And so that's how I started out there. Now, at the time that I went, there was someone who was to be a colleague called Christine Gazago.
Oh, I remember that name.
Yes, she had come from ANU to do a PhD in autism on visual perception with Ross Day, and she talked to me about autism. And of course I was interested. I mean, it was so new then. It wasn't that I hadn't heard about it, but I knew nothing. But it clearly was something that was very mysterious, and to me, there was a challenge about understanding it, and I really like a challenge.
You do?
Yes.
What year was that, before you just go on?
That was, I think, about 69. So I began the autism work by just doing an essay, which was a requirement for beginning postgraduate work, and so that got me going. And from that, I went on to postgraduate work with a master's and a PhD, all in autism. So it all built up over the years. And it was really a challenge, you know, with these very mysterious children that we knew nothing about. They were, as you know, very beautiful often, but so handicapped. And so I took it on.
And did you see back then mostly the severe cases?
Yes, I think I did. It hasn't been till later years that this large swathe of more high functioning cases have come to our attention. And in the work that I did, I often had to go to places which was full of the more severe cases. And not many children were being diagnosed at all. So,
did you have difficulty recruiting children for your research?
I did, yes. There were not many people doing work with autism. You know, I could count them on one hand, I think. And because we knew so little about it, I think people were very unconfident. And there were some very funny ideas. For example, a psychiatrist who said to me, "I can always tell them straight away. They don't look at you." End of story.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yes, I did have trouble recruiting them. I had to go all over the place and visit special schools, institutions, special developmental schools for the intellectually disabled children. And of course, it wasn't only just finding children with autism, because when you do the sort of research I was doing, you need to not just study children with autism, you have to find comparison children, so children who are about the same mental age, so in terms of their development, normal, typical children, but also children who have a similar level of disability, intellectual disability. So I had to have 3 groups. So that was more trekking around kindergartens and special schools. So it was a lot of work. But the good thing about it was that I developed quite a good sample, and that took me through the program of research.
And I want to ask you, I think you wrote the first Australian paper on autism spectrum disorders. It was 1973, and it was published in the Journal of Autism and Childhood Schizophrenia.
Yes.
And I remember as a student myself reading that. Can you tell us a little bit about that paper?
Well, one of the most striking things when you get to know these children is the repetitive behaviour, the doing the same thing all the time, lining things up, being obsessed with carrying around a stone, for example. And I was really fascinated by that. And I wanted to know why this was happening, what function was it serving for the children, how did it fit into the picture. In fact, what I wanted to know really was, how do the brains of these very mysterious, enigmatic children work? That was what I thought I might be able to find out. And so that was part of that. So I developed some methods of researching that, and that got me to my first paper. But at the same time, I was also really interested in classification and categorisation. So that all happened in a context of building up a sample, getting data on them, and asking the question, are there subgroups of these children? Because even though they have the same disorder, they're so different. They're all individuals, they all look different and yet the same.
Well, you were ahead of your time because, of course, right now, currently in autism research, that's what everyone's trying to do, is trying to subtype them.
Yes.
So, I guess then that was a question that was ever present.
It was. And one fortunate thing was that I was at Monash, where there was somebody doing work on numerical taxonomy, which is a way of categorising birds or flowers. And so we applied that to this sample of children. And we did find 2 subgroups. The disappointing thing was that the 2 subgroups were those who are not severe and those who were severe. So it didn't seem to advance us much, but at least we had a technique of trying to put these children into particular groups according to their strengths and difficulties. So that went on, and it's still an interest, yes.
And I mean, it links nicely to the next question that I want to ask you, which is, given your time in this field, what have been the big changes in your mind, and what has surprised you?
Well, I'll start with what has surprised me. What has surprised me, given where I've come from, is how long it has taken us to get where we are. I mean, it's 40 years, and I never suspected that it would be such a long, long haul, especially given the amount of investment in research that we've had. So, you know, I do feel much more optimistic now, but for years I didn't, because it just seemed to drag on, tiny bit at a time, and no solution to the puzzle. So that's been surprising for me. I suppose we've gotten used to medical breakthroughs and there wasn't one.
Yeah.
So that's what has surprised me most. In terms of where we've gotten to, I think that we now have a really good body of knowledge and experience and wisdom coming from the huge amount of research that has been given to autism. So that means we're in a much stronger position to go on with more research. We're not starting with nothing as we were when I first started. So you feel much more confident that you know where you are and you know where you're going, and I think that's been really very important. And now we're in a much better position to make good decisions about what theories to test.
Yeah.
Yes.
And yes, so certainly what theories to test, and also how to intervene, which is the next area I'm going to talk to you about, because you've had a huge influence in Australia in reviewing what interventions are available, where the evidence base is, and so on, with 2 major reports now written. Can you tell me a little bit about intervention when you came into the field in the 60s and 70s? What was intervention like, and especially in relation to where we are today?
Well, there's quite a story there. I think I mentioned before to you in conversation once about a dentist called Dr. Andrew Vern Barnett. He and his wife, who lived in Sydney, were the first people I read about who discovered that there was something wrong with their daughter and tried to get help. No help available. They had a terrible time. But she was diagnosed with autism. Next step, no help available, no intervention, just nothing. So he started the first intervention centre in Australia, in Sydney.
I don't know if we know. Well, certainly
No.
I've never heard about this.
It's a long time ago.
Yeah.
Yes. So he was a pioneer, really, and interestingly, he only died a couple of years ago. So he's been a wonderful stimulus to what's happened. But what was happening? Let me talk about Melbourne. What was happening in Melbourne was we had 2 or 3 church halls where people gathered together to provide some sort of intervention for these children, bearing in mind that they weren't nearly as numerous then. Yes. So
They probably got the intervention they needed.
well,
Well, the
don't know
amount
about
they
that.
needed, maybe
Yes.
in terms of time, but maybe not
Yes.
in terms of approach.
It was still a problem that we didn't know anything. And so the people who came and worked with them, lots of hard work, lots of goodwill, but not much expertise. And so what I think they did was to apply the expertise they had in general disability services to these children. And then, we had to find our way. So the focus was on social engagement, of course. How can we get these children to pay attention to us, to do things, to play, etc.? Not so different from today. It's really basic. But we didn't really have the techniques that we've developed now. And of course, there's always the behaviour problems, which were such a handicap to trying to do anything with these children, and remain so today. So there was a lot of work put into trying to manage their behaviour. And at that time too, behaviour therapy was becoming quite a major feature of what we were doing in psychology and in intervention. And so that was good in that at least we had that to learn about and to apply. And then applied behaviour analysis came along, and that was a more systematic use of behaviour therapy. So we didn't have much of that in those days, but you can see there were some early beginnings there which have now, which have been the platform for where we've gone now.
And with where we are now, do you think that's the end of the story in terms of our interventions? And I guess, let's at the moment talk about early intervention.
Yes, well, I certainly don't think it's the end of the story. I think we've got a long way to go. I think we need much more evaluation of what we're doing. And in those reviews that we wrote, it was perhaps surprising, but perhaps not, that there was so little good scientific evaluation. I mean, we do have more science now, and I can't tell you how important that is and how important that's been. We must look at this as the medicos do. Does this work? For whom does it work? How does it work? Is it sustainable? All of those questions we need to be looking at. So I think we need a big input into that, and that's certainly increased, so that's good. My particular focus at the moment in terms of intervention is all these children are different. They don't need the same thing. So it's horses for courses, as they say. So I think we have to get much cleverer at matching the child and the child's characteristics to the treatments that we have. We know basically what works pretty well, but we don't know the details. We don't know enough about how these children learn to make sure we can get a good match between what we've got to offer and what the child's got to offer. So I think we have to go in that direction if we want to do better in intervention.
And saying that, and I guess that also leads into the next question I wanted to ask you, where do you think that, and you might already have answered it, at least part of it, where do you think we as researchers, where should our priorities be in research?
Yes, well, I think everything's a priority. I mean, all facets of autism really need to be attended to. If I had to prioritise them, of course I'd go for social communication, because without that it's very hard to get anywhere. Or communication and social engagement, really. They've always been the core things.
Yes.
So we have to push harder with that and become more expert there. We have to work harder on behavioural management. We do much better than we used to, but it's still a big challenge for us. I think the technology is much better than it was. I find teachers to be better educated than they used to be about that sort of thing. So it's on the way, but we've still got work to do. The other thing I think we should be thinking about is the whole age span.
The lifespan.
Yes, the whole lifespan, because, you know, the adolescents and the adults have really been neglected in terms of getting support and intervention and getting a decent life. So I think we really have to do more about that.
So it really is about creating the possibility for a high quality life, for a good quality life, which is what we all expect for ourselves, our children.
Of course. And although it's a challenge, you know, other countries are doing it. If you look at the United Kingdom, the US, Denmark, and other countries, they have been able to set up systems. And they're not easy and they're not brilliantly successful, but they've shown that it can be done. And I think we should be looking very hard at those systems and setting them up for ourselves here.
So in terms of, you've sort of outlined some research priorities for researchers. What do you think the government priorities should be in this area?
Supporting early intervention, which they are doing, and congratulations to them. But it is, I'm sure you'll agree, it's really very key to get the children into therapy as soon as possible. So early diagnosis, supporting the children at school, more expertise in school, supporting the parents, because they've had this whole long struggle over all these years pretty much on their own until recently. And supporting the parents is so important for supporting the children. So I think there has to be some emphasis there.
And so with the, coming in of the NDIS, and also at, quite serendipitously, really, I think the Cooperative Research Centre for Living with Autism Spectrum Disorders. Do you feel that provides us a way forward?
Look, I think it's wonderful. I think that it has the potential to make a huge difference. So if we can get enough support from the communities as well as the research support, of course, it covers, as you know, it covers biology, it covers early intervention and it covers schools and it covers the adults. So it has, a wonderful span and very good plans for dealing with all of the problems across and within those particular factors. So I think if we can get enough workforce and enough energy behind this and enough community cooperative support, that it really has a chance of doing something big.
And where then does this leave us, you think, for the next decade? Where do you think we'll be, Margot, with your vast vision in terms of the past and looking, to the next decade, in 10 years' time, with what's been put in place, where do you think we should be and will be? I mean, I guess there might be two different things.
Yes. I don't know that we can say where we will be, but I think given the directions that we have at the moment, that we should be very much better at doing successful intervention and sustainable intervention. And so there should be a smaller number of cases who don't do well. So there should be more coming out at that upper end where they're doing fairly well or quite well or very well. I can see that beginning to happen. So I think that will go on. So more families and children will have better outcomes. The other side where I expect progress is in the biological markers. I mean, they've been so elusive despite vast investment, but everybody's still pushing hard. If we could discover those biological markers, it would be so helpful for diagnosis and feeling confident about what it is we're looking at in autism. That should help not only with diagnosis, but with what I was talking about before. It should round out our feelings and our expertise in terms of selecting appropriate interventions. So I think that will continue, but given the history, I'm not sure it'll be very fast. It's so complex.
Yes. Do you think technology will help us in this quest? I mean, I feel that technology has helped us in terms of things like, we can now track eyes, we can and get a little window into how the brain's functioning. We can image brains and we can look at pathways in brains now. Do you think that technology will continue to be able to help us understand autism further?
Well, in a way I do and in a way I don't. Certainly it's given us ways of looking into the brain, if you like, and so that's good. It's the next step which is harder, and that's the bit I feel uncertain about, that we can tell each other a lot about autism now, but what we all want to do is to have the children achieve their potential. So there's still this gap between what we're doing and successfully translating it into a good developmental progression. So that still means for me working really hard on the individualisation of interventions and understanding each child as an individual.
Thank you very much for joining us, Margot, and sharing your vast knowledge with us today.
My pleasure.
If you don't mind, we're just now going to take some questions from the audience. I hope that's going to be all right.
Hello, my name's Linda Kennedy. I'm representing Asperger's Victoria here. With the NDIS coming through, do you think when they are ready to start applying some funding to the teenagers and adolescents and adults that you spoke about earlier, do you think following the model of the Helping Children with Autism package but removing the age limitations is the way to go? Because we've seen so many great benefits with the Helping Children with Autism package and the service provision for early intervention in young children.
Yes, I'm not sure what's going to happen there. I have actually spoken to some of the people in government about the challenges of this kind of thing and making sure that they don't clash or double up on what's happening with the autism package. So I hope they're aware of that. I think it's going to take a lot of work and I think it's going to take a lot of lobbying so that parents with adolescents and adults are probably going to get together and develop some strong lobbying strategies for that group. So that would be my advice. More work for the parents, of course.
Are there any other questions?
I might ask one. Thanks, Margot. We've spoken obviously about researchers and governments. I wonder whether you could potentially say something about the business sector and what role you see in the corporate world, what role they have in playing in making better futures for people with an ASD.
Thanks. Yes, I'd certainly hone in on that. I think that the corporate world ought to be putting its mind to helping people with disability, including autism. And as I said earlier, it's been shown that you can do that. And although it's not easy, it can be done, especially if there's the right kind of dynamics between the corporate world and the disability world, and that there is support, not just for the people with autism, but also for the corporate people who are putting in their time and money. So we just need to build up expertise there. We need to learn how to do it. And as I said, there are some models, and we need to get sufficient corporate interest so that a system can be set up which is acceptable to everybody. So that's one of my big hopes.
Thank you.
Margot, keeping on the theme of adults, there was a study published in 2011 from the UK, a population study, which suggested that there might be as many as 1% of adults who are clinically unrecognised in the community. And given that there's a high comorbidity with things like anxiety disorder and depression, do you think we have an issue with regard to mental health education for people who deal with adults with mental health difficulties, and recognising that an autism spectrum disorder might be underlying that?
Yes, I do. And in fact, I experienced that in previous years. I was sometimes called in to see an adult person in one of the agencies or institutions because they were puzzled about the diagnosis, and just wanted to raise the possibility that this person had Asperger's syndrome or autism. So I know it's been around for a long time. I think and I hope that there's more expertise about that now, but I don't know how many people who are being treated for some other disorder or related disorder are actually being identified as in need for expertise around autism. I think it's out there, but probably amongst too few people. So I think that, again, that's probably a job for psychiatry to do more work and gain more expertise and more awareness so that they're more ready to bring in a psychologist, for example, who can at least discuss with them what's needed for that particular person.
Yeah. So I think Professor Pryor has really charted our work for us over the next decade for researchers, for government. And Professor Pryor, I'd really like to thank you for coming with us and talking with us today.
My pleasure.
Thank you.